So, we know that tomorrow is September 23rd, right? We talked about it. It's the end of the world, as we know. Okay? I hate that song. But what today is actually the day before the end of the world. And the day before the end of the world actually happens to be Treaty 7 Day. What is Treaty 7 Day? Let's talk about that. Well, Treaty 7 Day is the day of the signing of Treaty 7. So we'll do the who, what, where, when, why. Who signed this treaty? It was Canada, and Canada signed the treaty with the Bloods, Piegan, Siksika, Sarcee, and Stoney. Now, what that means is that we are all treaty people. Doesn't matter what color you're from. If you're from Canada, you're a treaty people because your government signed the treaty with the Blackfoot people. So that's what we say. We are all treaty people, not just the people of Treaty 7. Natives, non-natives, you live in Canada, you are a treaty people, a treaty person. So what is it? Well, Treaty 7 was initially a peace treaty and a peace agreement. It was a peace agreement between the non-natives and the natives in the area, as well an agreement to stop all the tribes in the area from raiding each other. Where was it? This treaty signing happened at Blackfoot Crossing. Blackfoot Crossing is up on the Siksika Reserve out there by Gleason. They got a really good interpretive center as well. So if y'all want to pop in there and check that out, learn a bit about your history here in Alberta, Canadian history actually. Now, when did it happen? I think we said that, September 22nd, 1877. Why did it happen? Well, straight up colonial expansion. That's why it happened. John A. Macdonald wanted to get his railroad right across Canada. As well, there's fears of Americans taking over this area because at the time, around the 1870s, a lot of Americans were coming up and creating whiskey forts in the area. As a matter of fact, Lethbridge started out as a place called Fort Hamilton, which changed into Fort Whoop-Up, which was actually an American whiskey trading post. They flew an American flag above the Fort Whoop-Up, is what they called it. It was all about colonial expansion. So that's just a little bit of brief history about it. In the 1870s, the whiskey trade was happening. The fur trade was dying off in the area, and the whiskey trade was taking over. And this was causing a lot of havoc and a lot of chaos amongst the people in the area. There were some massacres, there's murders happening everywhere. And due to all sorts of reasons, as well as I mentioned, the railroad and Americans encroaching on Canadian sovereignty, the Canadian government sent what was called the Northwest Mounted Police back in 1873. These are 300 guys dressed in red uniforms, call them the Mounties today. They crossed the plains and ended up in Blackfoot country, and they created Fort McLeod, the first jail. Just kidding. But anyways, so they put a stop to the whiskey trade, and eventually they actually were the ones that talked the Blackfoot people into signing the treaty. Now, there was a lot of reasons to sign the treaty, a lot of circumstances leading up to this. Smallpox epidemics, diseases were happening, the buffalo were being systematically wiped out, the Baker massacre occurring just south of us, pushing the Bloods up this way to Blackfoot people. There was a lot happening at that time, which created this signing. One thing that people don't know is actually the Bloods and the Siksika initially had the same reserve. When the treaty was signed, Crowfoot, who was the chief of the Siksika, and Red Crow, who was the chief of the Bloods, where I'm from, actually had a reserve that was connected. And then, I don't know, it must have been a season or so later, I'm not sure how long, Red Crow eventually moved the Blood people down south to the Belly Buttes. That's down where the reserve is right now. You could see to the south of us Chief Mountain. You could see the Belly Buttes from there. So that's where the reserve is now. Another thing about some people might not know is the annuities for the Treaty 7 people. In the time of 1877, these annuities were actually worth something. It was $25 for the chiefs, $15 for counselors, and $5 for everybody else. Now, $5 was some money back then. I looked it up, and $1 was, well, it actually wasn't a lot, but $1 was about 20 bucks in today's cash. So you times that by 5, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's maybe $100 a year, right? That's what they received back then. So it's $5. And honestly, since then, that annuity for Treaty 7 has not gone up. Our people still get $5 every single year. It's crazy. You can imagine like handing out that many $5 bills. Me, myself, I like to wait about 4 years before I go collect my treaty money, so I get 20 bucks. Might be enough gas to actually get there. And, you know, it's a real nice surprise to actually show up sometimes and, whoa, you got $10 instead of just a regular 5. I think now our ban actually compensates us an extra $5 now, because I go every year to collect my 5 and I get $10 now. So I don't know where that extra 5 is coming from. Maybe it's old Trudeau, who knows. Another thing, what else? Oh, the blood tribe where I'm from, they were actually late for the treaty signing. The reason why they were late, well, Red Crow and the Fish Eaters band were late. Red Crow was one of the head chiefs in the Bloods, and he really saw no importance in signing Treaty 7. It was initially because the Lameville Treaty, I think it was called, in 1855, was signed in the United States, and of course the United States didn't honor the agreement. So when the Canadian government came with this treaty, just like maybe 20 years later, no one really thought it was important. Back then, treaties were made and broken constantly, so no one thought this was important. And also, when the treaty was being signed around September 1877, the Bloods were camped by the international border. They were way down south. And Red Crow actually asked that the treaty be signed in Fort McLeod. And when it wasn't signed there, that kind of miffed him. So, and then one last thing, they call it a signing. They say the signing of Treaty Number 7, when in fact the chiefs did not sign anything, and they only touched a pen. So you got to call it making treaty. Making treaty is the proper way of saying it, because it was actually a process. There's a whole process that goes with making treaty. So they didn't actually sign. They just touched the pen. So that does it for me, y'all. I just wanted to give you a little bit of history on what today is, September 22nd. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us here on JessFM. I hope y'all have yourselves a good evening. I think what we're going to go out with is a little bit of, what do we got here? I think we're going to play you some, if we can get it working here. Why don't we play you a little bit of some Blood Red's Crew. So make sure you show up next week, next Saturday, Moses Lake Music Festival. Be there or be square. Right now, what we're going to play is a little track called, let's see, what do we got here? What do we want to hear? How about, here is a track. Right here, the Res Needs a Superhero. Actually, you know what? This is not even the TWK. Right here is Brandon Eagle Plum. Brandon Denver. He's going to be out at the Moses Lake Music Festival. We collaborated on a track, and the track's called The Res Needs a Superhero. It's actually about Gato Yes. All you need to be up there. Look up Gato Yes. TukkLive Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. on JessFM.ca. Ladies and gentlemen, we out.